everyone, from the 53rd IATEFL Annual Conference and Exhibition. I'm here with Lindsay Clanfield, one of our plenary speakers this year's conference. Hello Lindsay, thank you very much for coming here.
Thanks for asking to speak with me.
How have you been enjoying the conference so far?
It's been great. It's been great. I didn't go last year, so it's been really nice to come back and see familiar faces and meet new people. And yeah, it's good to be back in Liverpool as well. And
tomorrow is your plenary talk.
That's right. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. What are you going to talk
so
about?
The talk that I want to give is a critique a little bit of some of the ways that we talk about or the discourse that surrounds education technology. It's basically about some of the stories we tell and the words we use when talking about the way we do education technology in the classroom, but sort of more around the classroom, the kind of narratives that emerge about education technology and how some of these could bear looking at a bit more closely, because some of them, I believe, may be hurting us, or they may be in conflict with other things that we believe in ELT. So I sometimes find there are pressure points there, and I think it's worth exploring some of those.
Why would there be a pressure between the two?
Well, I'm not going to give it all away because I want to tell you all about it tomorrow, so you can watch tomorrow and I will explain exactly where those are. But let's just take an example of one which is an easy example. The notion that there are digital natives and digital immigrants is one that's been around for a long time in popular culture, not just in ELT, but it had bled into ELT. We did have a plenary talk by the person who coined that term. In fact, 10 years ago, exactly, to this conference, came and taught us all that. And it seems to make so much sense. It made common sense, but it doesn't really bear out. And there's been a lot of exploration of that. And some of the conclusions coming out from the study of this discourse is that by casting teachers as the digital immigrants, which is almost always what happened, and the students as the digital natives, it ultimately becomes sort of a disempowering tool, and also used then by other agents to sort of take the power away from teachers, so it makes us feel less enabled about what we're doing, and it also serves as a cudgel for others to sort of say, well, teachers aren't good enough, they're not professional enough, and it's also wrapped up in a lot of other kind of things that in ELT would make us feel uncomfortable. The idea of native speaker and non-native speaker, and a lot of that is wrapped up in the way we talk about that. That's just one example, and it's an easy one. I'm going to be saying more tomorrow.
And I suppose when people share these discourses in their staff room, obviously they might influence their colleagues either for or against using technology.
Yeah, I think these kind of things often, they may not, I think they come from often outside of ELT, and there are also narratives that are crafted or developed and pushed by the tech companies themselves, and that's fine. And some of there's no denying that there have been some great innovations, but I also think that we're entering a slightly different relationship with technology now. You're seeing it more and more, an uncomfortableness about what Google and Facebook and Amazon have become, and so we are seeing now more questioning of how they have sold themselves to us and made themselves indispensable in our lives, and whether or not we should be re-examining our relationship with it. We can't turn back the clock, but we can work to make things better, to have a better relationship with technology.
What is your involvement with educational technology?
Okay, I'm a course book writer, so I've got a new course book out with Helbling Publishers called Studio. Most course books now have a technological element to it. What I was really interested in there is I've been noticing how the technological element, like the app, the thing, is often kind of pushed for outside class, so they don't do it in class. And I'm quite interested in projects that teachers do and that we do of using the technology inside class without necessarily a Wi-Fi connection, because we know how bad Wi-Fi is in so many schools, and it's an absence of recognizing this that makes a lot of these sometimes really exciting projects just not work. So I'm looking at how lower tech things can be still marshaled and used in the classroom. Let's take a simple example of the interactive whiteboard. And the interactive whiteboard came out, if you remember, had tons of stuff that all the talks were like, you can do this, you can hide this, you can zoom this, you can beam this in, you can take the notes. And when teachers weren't doing that, there was an enormous frustration on the part of those who sell interactive whiteboards, and those who buy them, like the institution, saying teachers aren't using it because they're backwards, dinosaurs, etc. But fast forward 10 years, and you do see teachers have adapted parts of it that work for them. So we don't see teachers using all the bells and whistles of interactive whiteboards, but we do see increasingly now in many countries there's a projector, and the teacher is very comfortable now projecting an image, projecting a PowerPoint, if they have the means with Wi-Fi to project an online video. And so what one author, Larry Cuban, who I very much recommend, he's not an ELT, said is that often the proponents of a big new technology wanted a full-scale like revolution, but they wanted fundamental change, and what teachers do is incremental change. So they do get there little by little, and it's not fair to say they're all like anti-tech or backwards. So they do. So coming back to Studio, sorry, now you've got me on a roll. Coming back to Studio, I wanted to look at how teachers are in fact using the projector for images, for things like that, and then develop activities. In this case, these are videoscape backgrounds. So we have for like a speaking lesson, so imagine you do a thing in a cafe, yeah? So they have to role play a cafe thing. They can then do it again, but you could project a videoscape of a cafe with people, the sounds and everything like that, and the students can do their role play or whatever with that in the background. It's not a complicated thing. It's a simple thing, but it's the kind of thing that lots of teachers can very easily get on board with. I'm also really interested in how people interact online, for example, in social media and stuff like that, and in classroom activities and games that can be done within that medium as well, sort of on forums and so on.
So it will include activities that teachers can use in their classrooms?
Oh yeah, I mean the book Studio is a classroom-based book, but what is interesting I think about the technology in that is that it is very much designed for not necessarily a high-tech environment, it can be a low-tech environment, not necessarily have to have Wi-Fi. It is primarily a paper-based book. I'm very much in favor of paper-based books, but with certain elements that you can incrementally put into a lesson.
And is this available to teachers?
Yeah, it is. That one just came out just now, but I do lots of other projects. So I do online teaching, teacher training. As I said, I'm very interested in activities that promote interaction between students on a discussion forum, for example. So I do lots of games and activities like that in discussion forums. What else?
Do more people participate now in online training?
Oh, training, yes. I definitely think that where we really have seen the pickup in online education in our field is in the teacher training, definitely. And I think we are seeing more and more teaching online. But teaching online for language teaching, I think, is still in a bit of a Wild West thing. It's sort of like this, we're still in a period where anything goes, there's not an agreed kind of way to do it. You know, you might have...
Why is this?
Well, one is because the technology would sometimes get quite a lot better quicker. So for example, online classes from 5 years ago might not have depended so much on video because the video quality would have been bad, the broadband, not enough people have it. But now, it's suddenly become much more available, so people change very quickly, and within ELT we've had decades and decades of methodology and things like that, and here we just haven't had that, so people are still finding their way.
There's one last thing I'd like to ask. This year's conference has a future directions perspective. What do you think is the future of English language teaching?
You know, it's become fashionable to say now that we shouldn't be in the prediction business because so many things happen that I don't know. I mean, and one of the things that I talk about in the discourse of education technology is often we look, especially within technology, we look only to the future. We look to the now, the near to now, and a little bit further, the horizon from now. We fail often to look back on why it didn't work that time. Why weren't interactive whiteboards so widely taken up as we thought they should be? Why weren't computers in classrooms so widely taken up? Why didn't television in classroom get so popular as they had hoped it would in the 80s? Why didn't shortwave radio, which was back in the 30s, become such a big thing? I'm all for talking about the future, and I think it's a great thing, but I also am more mindful now, maybe talking about the future through the past, looking back
and learning
forward
from it,
and learning from it.
Right, well, thank you very much, Lindsay.
Thank you.
For your time.
Okay.